Hey everyone, welcome to Dough-Kota Bakes again. Today we're going to talk about discard and starters. So right now I'm getting ready to do a big bake and I have some neighbors and friends that want some bread, and I always enjoy taking a loaf in for work. So I got out my jar of discard, which you've seen I usually have a lot. It's getting a little low, but I need to make some active starter out of this. It's been in the fridge for a little while now. The gray coloring that you see on top of there, don't worry about that. That's called hooch. It's just a little bit of a byproduct of the fermentation process. And you're just gonna stir that in real good before you get started. Now let me say, this is fresh out of the fridge, so it might take a little bit longer to wake up because it's not warm. However, I'm not gonna bake until tomorrow, so I'm not worried about the speed of the starter becoming active. So you're gonna need a couple of things here. You're gonna need some warm water, and you're going to use it in a temperature that, about like you would give for a newborn baby's bath. You don't want it too hot because you don't want it killing off the starter. You're gonna want a nice bowl. So I like to use a nice stainless steel bowl. Don't use a cheaper stainless steel bowl because they will actually kind of etch and rust if you do. This is a nice stainless steel bowl. It doesn't have any issues. So the first thing I'm gonna do is we want to feed in a 1-to-1 ratio. And we're gonna use equal parts of flour, water, and discard. Now, when I say equal parts, that's in grams. Never use cups because the ratios are off. You have to use grams. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I wanna do a pretty big batch, so I'm gonna do 200 grams this time. So I'm gonna add 200 grams of water. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to actually add my discard. Now the discard is a little bit thicker here, so I'm probably going to need a cup to do it. When it's warm, you can really just do it by pouring it in because it gets thinner. And you can see it is rather thick, it's gooey, it looks a little bit similar to pancake batter. And I'm gonna start pouring this into the water. And I know it's gonna probably take at least 2 of these cups, if not more. Yeah, so I'm at like 93 grams right now. And a little bit more, another cup. Okay, I'm getting really close there. Okay, I'm at 200 grams. If you end up a little bit over, don't worry about it if it's on the discard end. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit stronger on the discard side. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my sourdough whisk. You could use the spatula if you wanted to, and I really do recommend these solid silicone spatulas. They hold up a little bit better. They don't get sourdough in the cracks. They're easier to clean. But I do like to use this because when you whisk it, it sends it through those shapes and it breaks down the sourdough and evenly distributes it through the water. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tare my scale again, and then I'm going to add the flour. I recommend using a good bread flour to feed it with. Lots of people will use rye or wheat. I don't particularly love using rye or wheat. I like to use the same bread flour that I bake with, but it's really just a personal preference. So I'm going to add 200 grams of flour. Perfect. Now I'm just going to give it a good stir. And you can see it's actually quite thick. So when it feeds off of the flour, it will actually thin this, and you'll end up with a very active, bubbly starter. Starter should look like after you feed it. Now, temperature that your starter needs to be fed at, that's tricky. I keep my house way too cold probably in the summertime. It's around 61 degrees. That's a little bit too cold for it to activate very fast. So I actually have a proofing mat that I'm gonna put it on that'll keep it at 73 degrees so that by tomorrow my starter will be active and ready to bake with. If it's above 80 degrees, you're gonna wanna put it in a cooler area so it doesn't get too hot. Too hot can kill it, too cold can slow it down. Those are the issues with it. But that is how you feed your starter. It doesn't take a long time. Once you're done feeding it, the final step is going to be to cover the bowl. You do not want to leave this uncovered in the room. One, it attracts fruit flies if you have any of those around. It can get contaminated and it can dry out on the top layer. You can either put a lid on it loosely. You never want a tight lid. I have actually had them completely pop off and make a sound like a gun going off. So you don't want to do that. I like to use these. You can buy them in bulk on Amazon for just a few dollars. I bought 100 of them, I think, for $5. They're like little shower caps. I just put this over the top and it makes it loose and allows the gas to escape while still keeping my starter moist. So those are one thing that I would recommend maybe investing in. It's pretty cheap and it's very useful in your sourdough baking. Happy baking!